Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. This is an excerpt from a class that I went through probably 25 plus years ago to receive a sales negotiation training certification, and then I taught this internally. So most of us are small business owners or salespeople for our company in some form, fashion, or the other. So when you look at this, you'll notice that it's oriented towards a sales negotiation. Many times, especially when I was in a corporate sales position, the buyer would get to me and say, I want to negotiate with you. Well, we really weren't negotiating. It was called leverage politics is what it was. In other words, he was dangling the order for a concession, and typically it was a price concession, even though there are many things that we can negotiate about. Therefore, when you're working through and fixing to close a piece of business, make sure that you know if you have an agreement to do business or you're still in a sales mode. And so if you're in a sales mode, you're overcoming objections. That's a very important aspect of the deal. Now, so when not to negotiate before you establish your value proposition. So many times that we are out there competing in the marketplace, we're trying to differentiate ourselves from so many of our competitors. And the professional buyers are schooled to put you down. You're just like everybody else. You know, I can take all your value and squeeze you on price at the same time. So you really need to work on that value proposition. So make sure you're overcoming objections. Sometimes it's just education, right? So Kim, how can you charge me $500 for this process to get moved out? Can I do all that myself? So Kim's got to overcome that objection with all of our value propositions. Now, what we want to do, we've agreed to negotiate, so we want to set an agenda. And that doesn't necessarily mean every part of your agreement, but the time, the place, the location, who's going to be involved. If you're in a corporate type of environment, and for example, I was a technical salesperson for 30-something years. I sold engineered type products, and there were times when if I could get the design engineer to help me out with the negotiation, I was a lot better off. Or if I had a vice president of national accounts that could set in and bring in the operations manager and help them understand the logistics of the company, I had already gotten the business to the point where we were coming to a final agreement. Now we were knocking out the details, and I needed that level of expertise. So bring in a team, that sort of thing. So here's the process, and this is where we have some confusion. This involves the ethics of presentation, what you really want, what you're going to actually agree on. We all know that we would like to have, with the constraints of the marketplace, a price for our deliverable. So if we have an item, and if it's $100 each, and so that $100 is going to cover all of our operating costs, and it's also going to involve being able to compensate our staff and then pay us a fair and reasonable price. That's what we would really like to have. That's fair and reasonable, and that's the max type of price you're going to go in with. However, you also have one that you would concede to and actually do business with, and the other one, the third position, is this is my walk away. If they start squeezing me for this value, which is lower than I can operate on, then I walk away. But you don't tell your opponent that. You just go in and say, my price is $100. Now let's talk, that sort of thing. Remember, the agreement is always at risk. Now, what's negotiable? A lot of times we just think price, price, price. And then you go to sales school and they say, don't sell on price, right? If you're just selling on price, then you're a loser. You need to sell on value. And that's why we work so much in our marketing efforts to make sure that we're differentiating ourselves from our competition. So what might you have other than that? Payment terms, credit card, extended payment terms. You know, Steve does stuff, he'd probably prefer to have one payment up front, but a lot of times it's an annual deal. a little bit extra to do that, but it helps fit in the budget. He can do that. Or there's, pay it with cash, write a check, that sort of thing. Training. Many of us are selling a technically oriented item, and it involves some expense. So it seems so free, but especially if you're in the tech world, you might go, I can send a trainer to your location and work through this piece of equipment, or I can send you a series of videos, or we can have webinars, or we can have a phone call. All these involve cost, and all of these are negotiable. So those sort of things, when you look at what you're selling and what you're negotiating with, break it down into components. When you start to talk to somebody, you can go, well, if you want this price, these things have to go away because I can't afford to do that for you, that sort of thing. Now, don't settle on an individual item. When you come to a point and it says, okay, you'll come to my place and provide 3 hours worth of training, and you put that on the table and say, that sounds fair and reasonable, let's keep that on the agenda. We set it aside, but we haven't agreed to it, because you can paint yourself into a corner, and then people can come back and say, you agreed to this, and now I want this for this lower amount of money, and you go, ooh, I already agreed. So don't do that. So the question, the reason to have the Alamo up here, how many people are Texas history buffs? I got 2 acknowledged Texas history buffs. Scott, you're from West Texas, you gotta be. What did, not Travis, who's the other guy that was there that got sick?
Bowie.
Bowie went out to the bridge over the San Antonio River, and he met with the Mexican authorities or Santa Ana staff, and what did they tell Bowie at the Alamo on the bridge?
Complete surrender.
There's no negotiation.
No negotiation.
The red flag's up. You either die or give up right now, that sort of thing, right? So, conceding is essential. A lot of times we think, oh man, that's a weakness, I have to concede. No, it's not. We have this price up here. We have an acceptable. Somebody comes at you and you go, I can do that. You always agree, right? But then the caveat to this, I agree, is but you have to match these other conditions. If you want it at this price, then we're going to strip out 70% of the services that you ordinarily think you would get. Okay? That sort of thing. So the one thing you have to do is really be a subject matter expert. This is where your experience in your field and those 10,000 touches that make you an expert really come in handy, because something that seems so innocuous and subtle can turn out to be a very harsh circumstance as you continue, that sort of thing. All right, when you're working with people, the more you understand about personalities, the better off you're going to be. If you know that Scott Carley's a high D and an I thrown in there, he's going to be a pretty strong negotiator. And then Kim, she's a bit of an S. She appears so gentle and soft, but she's got a firm undergirding, right?
You don't know me very well.
So, all these aspects, and then what motivates people. You look at fear, anger, love, hate, ego, pride. Somebody may have gotten burned at the past, and they're working with you and trying to get you to come to an agreement, but they've got a strong bias in some form or fashion or the other. One of the neat things that you can do in a negotiation is call off a little break and then have a sidebar conversation, because we all know we have this personality that is evident when we're in a room like this. But if I'm off to the side and I'm talking to Steve, and I go, well, Steve, really? And then Steve goes, aha, there's the key point. This will help us move forward. So have those sort of things. And then crunching. Last war story, I was in a negotiation with Alcoa and my company, which is a big regional, at that time, national distributor. We were negotiating the final contract, and there was some stock that we're going to have to buy to take over this store up at Rockdale. And the buyer looks at my vice president of national accounts and says, you're going to take back all these blue jeans. And he thought the guy would just roll, our guy would roll. And he goes, no, we're not. They proceeded to have a screaming match like a couple of 8th grade boys. And I had worked for 2 years to get that thing up to that point. And I'm sitting over there, buy the dang jeans, just do it. And he goes, no, we're not, no, we're not, no, we're not. And they finally just quit talking. And then we were like, okay, we're going to move forward. And then the buyer goes, my other car's in the shop. My wife has my car. Would you take me home? We all just talked. So I thought, man, the negotiation is done. It's split. So it's interesting. And this is called crunching. So when somebody comes at you and you go, oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me. You're just like being over the top. That's high I have a really difficult time doing that personally. It's not naturally me. But you can use those little ploys in a negotiation. Well, very good. Finally, we want to have an offer and acceptance. We're going to have terms, all those things we knocked out. 2 same parties of legal age. Get it signed and witness it. When you have a contract, go back and make sure that the other party initials every page so they understand what's in your agreement. Don't take it for granted. There's a lot of detail there that you need to work out. Those are some of the things. This is actually a 4 to 8 hour course jammed into 8 to 10 minutes. And consequently, I have to end because I've got the red light. Thank you for listening and videotaping.